A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
The third pillar of entrepreneurship is pain killing. Stands for sales. Sales is a process, a 7-step process. Starts with rapport building, upfront contract, pain funnel, budget, decision maker and time frame, fulfillment, which is basically the demo, and then post-sell. A couple salesisms that everybody agrees with is A, when you're telling, you're not selling. Meaning, look at who's speaking more. If it's you, you're not selling. B, seek to understand before you're understood. Listen and understand what the other person is saying. And lastly, sales is not about answers. It's all about the questions you're asking. According to Tony Robbins, selling is the art of inspiring people to do what is in their best interest by helping them get in touch with what is important to them on a personal and emotional level. Selling is not about you. I'm sorry, it's not about you.
Hi, Dr. Jacobs. This is Chris Marlin over at JT Marlin.
Marlin?
Right, he's my father.
He's my mother.
So my associate tells me you're interested in one of our stocks.
Your wife's on break.
I will call her back. Yes, MSC sounds like it might be interesting.
Might be. Might be doesn't sell stock at the rate MSC is going for, Dr. Jacobs. We're talking very high volume here.
Oh, well, I still have to run it by my people.
That's great, Doc, if you want to miss yet another opportunity here and watch your colleagues get rich doing clinical trials. And don't buy a share and hang up the phone.
Well, hold on a second now. I didn't say that. I just want to talk about it some more.
Honestly, Doc, I don't have the time. This stock is blowing up right now. The whole firm's going nuts. Hold on, let me open up the door to my office. See that, Doc? That's my trading floor. Now I have 1 million calls to make to 1 million other doctors who are already in the know. I can't walk you through this right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's do this.
Now, since you're a new account, I cannot go any higher than 2,000 shares. I'm sorry.
2,000? Are you nuts? That is way beyond what I was thinking. 2,000? Jesus. Listen, I'm curious. Why can't you sell me any more than that?
Well, we like to establish a relationship with our clients on something small before we get to the more serious trades. Let me show you several percentage points on this small trade, and then we'll talk about doing future business.
That sounds good. Give me the 2,000 shares.
Done.
You sure you can't do any better on this one?
I'm sorry, Dr. Jacobs. I can't. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll start with this trade then.
Great. I promise we'll swing for the fences on the next one. Do you want that confirmation sent to your office or your mansion?
Very funny, Mr. Marlin.
Let me put my secretary on, and she'll take down your info. It was a pleasure doing business with you.
You know there's a selling opportunity when 1, everyone agrees there's a problem. 2, everyone wants the problem to be solved. And 3, and here's the killer, everyone agrees on a time frame. Rapport building. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. This is where style is more important than substance. This is where you need to learn the techniques of mirroring and chameleoning, meaning you act exactly like they do. You lean, you talk, you even walk like they do. Why? Because people buy from people like them.
What do you like?
We have a great section of do-it-yourself.
Do you like to do it yourself?
Sometimes. I mean, if the mood strikes.
How is the mood striking you now?
What's your name?
What's your name?
I'm, Beth.
Andy.
Andy. Don't tell on me, okay, Andy?
I won't. Unless you want to be told on. Beth.
Wow, that totally worked. I literally said nothing.
Upfront contract is where we establish ground rules, time limits, and decide on what the next step is after the interview or after the process starts. Without this, you cannot go on. A pain funnel is where you seek to understand before you're understood. Don't say everything you need to say without asking questions, starting the probe, leading a prospect down the path. Why? Because sales is personal. It's personal and it's emotional to the prospect. You need to find 3 to 5 pains, 3 to 5 reasons, compelling reasons why that prospect needs to buy your product. And if you ask the question, what happens if you don't do anything? And the prospect says, nah, nothing really, it's over. Stop the probe, thank your prospect, and go on to the next one. Sales is all about them. It's not about you. One thing I always ask people to do is take a list of features of your product or your service, and rather than answering them and figuring out what it is, how you can improve them, figuring out the pain it solves to the prospect. That's the important part. What pain are you solving with each of those features, and what is that pain worth? There are 6 questioning techniques involved in finding the pain. Direct questions, reversing, forming your own stalls and objections, using negative reversing, proacting and preemptively deal with potential objections and problems, and then lastly, using a series of prepared menus. Direct questions are literally just asking your prospect a question. For example, if I were selling you a watch, direct questions, I would just ask you, do you know what time it is? A good question would be, what time does your flight leave? Reversing is the art of answering a question with another question. You would be asking me, gee, do you have any watches that are sold between $50 and $100? Instead of answering that, what I would say is that your budget? Or what if we went to 25? Is that okay? Or maybe if you saw something you like, could you stretch it to 200? Or is that the only criteria you have is price? So again, I'm answering a question with a question. By forming your own stalls and objections, you actually draw the prospect in and they become part of this whole solution. I could literally think through and say, gee, this watch may look a little big on your wrist. Or you might not like the black band we have on here. What do you think? Again, I'm forming stalls and objections and giving them to you for approval. When you use a negative reverse, what it does is heighten the emotion. Whenever I say, gee, you don't want to do this, do you? Immediately the emotion gets higher. And if you're in a sales concept, this benefits you because you get out all kinds of facts that deal strictly with emotion. I might put out a more expensive watch than what you wanted, and fully knowing it looks a lot better than the one you're looking at, and say, but I think this is a little bit outside your price range, so we probably shouldn't consider this. What it's going to cause is me to rethink my price range because I'm really going to like this new watch. It's like anything else, a shiny car or whatever. When you proact and preemptively deal with potential objections, not only do you release the stall and objection, but you solve it too. What I would look at is something like, gee, this one is not only nice, but it comes with maintenance, or it comes with 1 cleaning per year, or it comes with a couple separate bands, so that I proact the questions that you may be thinking right up front. When I think of a series of prepared menus, I always think of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we? I take the temperature quite regularly during a process. Meaning, how are we doing so far on a scale of 1 to 10? Am I a 6, an 8? Those type of things. Here are some sample questions to draw out the pain. Things like, could you tell me more about it? How long has this been a problem? What have you done to fix it in the past? Has this worked? Explain to me again, why is this so important? The second thing that I ask oftentimes prospects to do is give me 3 questions that you're going to get asked with your product or service. And you know them. You absolutely know them. Now, instead of answering them, figure out why they're asking the question. Because you probably don't have to ever deliver that answer. You can probably show off your sales skills by, instead of delivering the answer, explaining to them why they're asking the question and how your product or service conquers that. The goal of the pain funnel oftentimes is to quantify the pain. Your goal is to show that your solution is going to save me time, energy, make me more efficient, save me money. Budget. Believe me when I tell you, you never defend budget. You don't even have to explain it. You don't have to justify it. Money is never the real issue. If you want to get closer, use a technique called bracketing. Say, gee, if I gave you this service, you'd probably take it, or if it cost $10 million, it might be out of your price range. Now, let's hone in on this. But it's never the real issue. Decision making. A decision to not make a decision is a decision. You have to be okay with a no. You need to handle a committee. You need to learn how to handle a committee, because what you need to do is attack every member of the committee individually so that each one of them is closed. And then they will all in unison vote for your product or service. The sixth step in the process is the presentation, fulfillment. Some people call it the demo. Now notice where this is in the process. It's not up front. I'm not trying to sell you this by demoing something right up front. It's all the way at the end when I know what your pains are, because this is where we make a deal. This is where I close the prospect. And this is where I know everything about the prospect, so that after this there should be nothing but a yes. 5 characteristics of great salespeople are they're hardworking, they're challenging, they're constantly building relationships. Sometimes they're a lone wolf, but they're always problem solvers. The ones that you want are the ones that are challenging. That's the number one characteristic of a salesperson. Factually, challenging type people close 40% of the easy sales and close 54% of the complex sales. We often completely overvalue a contact list and completely undervalue the sales process. 3 tips for closing. Don't forget to ask for the yes. And honestly, don't accept a no from someone who can't give you a yes. It's a useless conversation. Lastly, personalize the sale and the close. Give the prospect something that they can latch onto and make their own. Sales. Rapport building, upfront contract, pain funnel, budget, decision maker time frame, demo, and post-sell. Those are the 7 elements of selling. I will tell you, if you can grasp sales, the rest of entrepreneurship is in a distance. It falls by the wayside. Sales is by far the most important element in a young business. If you can do that, finance, production, everything else fall away.